Hey guys, it's Evil Techie. Today we're looking at two true wireless earbuds. True wireless meaning they're Bluetooth 5.0, so it's really easy to connect and they kind of communicate with each other to help pass the signal around. And being so small, has a battery built in, so it really is truly lightweight and feels really doesn't feel like it's there at all. The design, of course, is fairly common with a lot of true wireless earbuds you see on the market these days. There's a kind of a generic button on the outside for both of these. And today we're more so looking at a big brand versus a small brand from China. This is a Philips UpBeat series. It's a SHB 2515 black. What's a little bit different about this is, first of all, you can tell by the size of the charging case. Very different. This is almost twice the size of that. But because this has a party trick up its sleeve. On the back here, you can see there's a USB-A port out. So that means you could charge your phone with this charging case. So it acts as a charging case for your earbuds, obviously. You just dock them in here. But additionally, it does have a pretty hefty battery built in. Well, hefty by being able to fit it in here. 3350 milliamp hours. So that's maybe about 80% charge for my Pixel XL or Pixel 3a XL. So yeah, I could kind of get by on an emergency charge. There's another micro USB port for input. But that's a neat trick. A little bit bigger, a little bit heftier to carry versus this TronSmart. Now the TronSmart has a little trick up its sleeve as well. It's got a USB-A cable built in, so that means it's one less cable to carry around. And it does have USB-C port on the rear. So if you're a latest Android phone guy like myself, it's one less cable you have to carry. So that is kind of nice. But this case really doesn't charge your phone, and it really has a much smaller capacity. It charges these earbuds for up to 24 more hours, whereas this one here charges these up to 70 plus hours. That's a tremendous amount of playtime. So you could go on a week-long road trip without, really having to worry about charging these. These are a little bit bigger than the TronSmart, so the Philips are a little bit heftier, and they got a rubberized design on most parts of it. On the surface here, it's black plastic. There's a little sheen to it, and these buttons light up to different colors. And I like these little winglets. They do stay pretty secure in your ears, so even if I'm shaking them really hard, you don't feel them, but you won't having them come off either. So they're actually fairly comfortable. And let's take a look at the weight. So they are bigger than TronSmart ones because they do carry a bigger battery inside. I think the TronSmart lasts about 2 hours of playtime, whereas these last about 3 hours. So let's take a look at the weight. So these come in at about 11 grams, and the TronSmart ones come in about 8 grams. So a little bit of difference. But they all function the same. They have these buttons that light up and a single button that kind of tell you what mode, what charging, and its multiple functions. Both are very easy to connect. The TronSmart is using a Qualcomm chip. It does do aptX. And these ones, I don't know what they're using. But I do have to say the sound quality on the Philips tend to sound a little bit more refined. The TronSmart sounds a little hollower even with aptX profile turned on. So it's really interesting to figure that out, which sounds better. Maybe it's to your preference, but I do find there's a little bit more detail and depth with these Philips. TronSmart does have IP X5 or 5X, so there is some slight weather resistant to it. Whereas these don't, but I don't plan, running out in the rain with them, so it should be okay. These do stay pretty secure, so I will try out when I go for a run. Overall, I think the Philips wins, even though it's a little bit more expensive. This is about $90 versus $30. This is 3 times the price, but having the convenience of having a power bank built in is really a big bonus, because these days, even though I have 2 other power banks with me for my USB-C phone, I rarely carry it just because it's one additional thing to bring around. Whereas if I'm wearing my headsets, I'm carrying the case anyways, and it acts as emergency charger, so it really is always around, and that's the convenience factor. So I think this is kind of worth the price, worth the extra, but we'll play around with it more and maybe do some more reviews on other true wireless earbuds and let you know what else we think about it. But for now, thanks for checking out my review. This is Evo Techie. Hey, there's one thing I want to add. After having listened to both for a few days and on multiple devices, I found that the Philips do sound quite a lot better. These are TronSmart or anything, I guess, in the $20, $30 or maybe $30, $40 range, really just sound tiny. There's not much power. That's why they can last a little longer even with a tiny battery. So it really has lack of depth, and there's not much bass to it. Not that there's a whole bunch of bass with Philips, but it does sound a lot better. It's kind of a mid-range versus these are kind of low range. This is kind of like those grocery store $5 earbud. You can compare it to that, but except with just a little bit wireless convenience built in. These do sound a little bit better. It does sound like $50 earbuds, or maybe a lot better earbuds. But now they're true wireless and have a pretty nifty charging case. One thing I also noticed is that the buttons are physical buttons. You can press and then there's a click to it, so you hear it in your ear. You can feel it tactilely, and it's a lot more responsive. Versus these are kind of a touch button. It's sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's really hard, very finicky to figure out. And then the winglets are also a good way for you to figure out the orientation, where it fits in the case, and it's easy to figure out how to pop them back in. So that's a big plus. Overall, I think I would still rather spend the extra money to get these rather than get horrible sound from these cheaper earbuds. But that's my 2 cents. Thanks.